Hello and welcome to Global Matters. It is another 8th of March, a day the international communities gather to honor the achievements of women, confront gender biases, and address the many challenges women continue to face all around us and in the world. It is also a day that serves to address various aspects of gender equality and women's rights, inspire inclusion, or what the United Nations call invest in women, accelerate progress, are the theme for the year's Women's Day. And joining us to look at the issues of inclusion and biases against women in Africa is Professor Ngobo Emeseh. Prof. Emeseh is a professor of law and the head of the School of Law at the University of Bradford in the United Kingdom. A seasoned academic, proudly a Nigerian woman with extensive global influence. But before I bring you Professor Emeseh to join the discussion, AIT foreign correspondent Sadat Dosumu has this report on International Women's Day. Don't go away.
The European Union has condemned the poor percentage of women in leadership and decision-making positions in Nigeria. EU noted that gender inclusiveness has been very low despite collaborations by non-governmental organizations and international agencies. In a statement issued on Friday to commemorate the International Women's Day, the EU said the overall proportion of female members in single or lower houses of parliament currently stands on an average at 33% in EU member states and 26.5% globally. The European Union says the Nigerian government needs to close this gap by encouraging the realization of 30% affirmative action to increase women participation. It said conscious efforts must be made to continue to do more to inspire and promote the inclusion of women in politics and governance. The theme for the 2024 International Women's Day event is to inspire inclusion, which is in line with this year's United Nations theme, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. As the world celebrates the International Women's Day, people in Ireland voted on Friday to replace constitutional references on the importance of a woman's life within the home, the latest attempt to update its socially conservative 1937 founding document. Irish Foreign Minister Michael Martin pitched the vote on Wednesday as a chance to remove archaic language from the constitution on the streets of Dublin. Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has pitched the vote deliberately being held on International Women's Day as a chance to delete some very old-fashioned, very sexist language about women. Still, some disability campaigners and advocacy groups have also opposed the government's proposal to replace the wording with language recognizing care within families for not placing a greater legal onus on the state to support those who give or receive care. While social chants in the once deeply Catholic nation has spurred the removal of bans on abortion and same-sex marriage, the Constitution contains a clause recognizing that by her life within the home, woman gives to the state a support without which the common good cannot be achieved. And in Gaza, women in Lebanon took to the streets on Friday, marking International Women's Day in front of the United Nations Women's Office in Beirut's eastern suburb of Sin Elfi. The protest was under the slogan, "No feminist struggle without Gaza," where demonstrators held pro-Palestinian banners and shouted slogans in support of Palestinians. International Women's Day is an annual event that celebrates the achievement of women and pushes for rights progress marked worldwide on March 8th. At least 30,878 Palestinians have been killed and 72,402 have been wounded, the Gaza Health Ministry said in a statement on Friday, in an Israel's military offensive on Gaza launched after Hamas' October 7 attack on southern Israel. And finally, in Egypt, nearly 5 years ago, Egyptian Bassem Alam set off on a horseback for the first time in her life in the desert of Nasser El Salmon in Giza City. That was the moment she fell in love with the sport. 38-year-old Alam, who wears the Islamic face veil, Nijab works in the field of marketing and is also an equestrian trainer. Alam said that when she started to pursue her passion, she was faced with some criticism for breaking social norms in a society where such sports are commonly for men only. She has trained nearly 75 women to ride horses over the past year and is a half in a farm in Squaran areas in Gaza. Alam hopes to share her beloved hobby with the largest possible number of people, especially women, as she recognized recreational horse riding trips in a number of Egyptian cities.
Thank you for taking the time to join the program. It's still Global Matters. And on the show today, we're taking in a look at the International Women's Day, confronting gender biases as regarding women. I have joining me in the studio, AIT foreign correspondent whose report you just heard right there. And joining me all the way from Bradford in the United Kingdom, Professor Ngobe Emeseh. She is the head of School of Law, University of Bradford. Prof, thank you so much for taking the time to join the program today. Prof, may I ask you to unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry
Awesome.
about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting
Thanks a lot. Your time really appreciated for taking you out of your very busy schedule. Today we're talking about the Women's International Day, and the theme for 2024 is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. How is this theme relevant to women's development around the world, especially with reference to Africa and indeed Nigeria? Invest in women and accelerate progress. Are women in Africa being given the opportunity as you have it in their counterparts around the world?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this is a very, very timely theme for International Women's Day, in the sense that I think we've always known that if you train up a woman, if you invest in a woman, you invest in a society, you invest in a community, not just an individual. However, investment requires resources, and resources are very much determined by who has the power to disperse those resources. What their priorities are usually do get focus. And unfortunately, women have not always been in the seats of power, in the rooms where these decisions are being made. And therefore, what you find is that women's issues are not prioritized in the same way that men's issues have been prioritized. And oftentimes you find that women are not invested in the same way that men are invested in. And this has a historical context when, for instance, we used to educate boys but not girls, or we would say there were certain courses that women should be doing, not others were not for women, it was just for men. But I think increasingly we do know that women can compete, women can be in the same spaces as men without being men, and that they can succeed in there as well. And that the more we do that, the more we actually develop an entire community, because for every woman we invest in a community. Now, I think you asked about how perhaps the situation is for African women and how that may be different in the setting in which I am in. Interestingly, I think this is my third International Women's Day event. Two I have had here, and it's the same questions, it's the same issues. The disparities between men and women exist everywhere, whether in the global south or in the global north. And therefore, I think the challenges for women are similar. I think what may be different is that the opportunities are perhaps a little bit more here than they are in Nigeria. But what I think we do really, really well in Nigeria is that Nigerian women are strong. Nigerian women are resourceful. And you find that they press through, they use whatever little resources they have in whatever space, whether that be in business, whether that be in professions, whether that be in the informal sector, to try and achieve their goals. And many a family, many a home, there is a woman who is the backbone, who is not just supporting her children, but a wider community. and using our own resources, investing our own resources in the next generation. So I think there are challenges. I think there's a lot more we could do, and perhaps we'll have that conversation. But I would just want to first of all start out by lauding Nigerian women for being such great pacemakers, pioneers, doing things beyond the resources that they actually have at their disposal.
Prof, thanks a lot. Before I go to my colleague in the studio, let me give you this question. You are the head of the School of Law, University of Bradford. How do the men take you being their head in their What does it
That's
mean?
an
What
interesting.
is it like you
That's an
working with
interesting
men?
question. Uh, I think women.
Especially in Bradford, especially in Bradford. Look,
Yeah.
what is it like?
I don't know because this is all I know. I have never been a man leading women or the other way around. So I don't know. It is all I know. However, yes, you are right. I mean, if you're a woman who aspires to be in a place of leadership, a lot more is required of you. A lot more is expected of you. What I can say is that you put in twice, thrice the amount of time that perhaps a man would. Research shows that usually men will go for a job if they're about 25% qualified for it. Women would go for it if they had tick every single box on that list. And what that means, therefore, is that by the time you get in a position like I do, that like I have, you have garnered a lot of respect within the sector, and that you're not just given this job, you've earned it. And because you've earned it, one of the things I say, I mean, there was a project I did with International Law, Women in Law Association in Africa. One of the things I said was that I think one of the things women have to learn, continue to learn to do, is to own their spaces and not be apologetic about being in spaces that traditionally are thought to be those for men, because we belong here. It's our space as well. And I think if we're doing the job well, and if we're leading in a way that leads to progress, that's actually what is important and what is critical. And I think ultimately men do recognize that and do appreciate that and do work quite well with me, actually. Thank you.
Great to know that they accept their fate to work with you. Thanks, Prof. I'll be back. Just stay there. I'll be back. Let me talk to my colleague. Sergeant,
Yes.
you worked around the world
Okay.
covering international events,
Oh, yeah.
competing with other men. What is it like in your industry, in the media industry, competing with men, fighting for the same medal, going out to cover the same thing? How do they treat you? How do they hold you? Is it a function of fighting for what belongs to you, or generally they just give it to you that, oh, she's a woman, let her go? What is it like?
Okay, funny enough, well, I had this conversation yesterday, when we're talking about the International Women's Day. In my own field, fortunately for me, the men allow you, to do your thing, work with them as a woman, and what is duly yours is given to you. If you can stand out, of course, you're going to get recognized. It's that simple in my field. I've never had any problem of being a woman in journalism or in covering events. No. In fact, the men, sincerely, they always look out for us as women. Maybe we're traveling and at the airport.
Because
you
you're
know,
a weak sex, or because
no,
you don't want you to
not
compete with
really.
them?
No, not really.
Apologies,
No,
I apologize for
you
using
can
that.
use that.
Why do you say the men look out for you?
They look
They
out
think
for
you cannot
us.
compete, or
They
what?
look out for us because it's a natural thing.
Oh,
Just like you
natural.
have sisters at home, you look out for your sisters.
And
you have a
my girl
wife,
daughters.
you have your daughters, you look out for them. So it's just a natural thing that happens. But the only place they won't allow us or they won't look out for us is when it comes to they see it as a competition when it comes to maybe vying for elective position or trying to be up there in decision making and policies and all of that. That's the only place they feel we should always be clapping behind them.
Does that account for the failure of the 35% affirmative being actualized?
Unfortunately, we're still where we are. You can see we're still where we are. Look at the Senate. We have 109 senators, just 4 women. Go to the House of Representatives. We have about 360, about 15 to 16 women there. Does that strike a balance to you? No. So what do? We keep fighting. We keep pushing for it. One thing I want the men to understand is we are not competing with you people.
So what are you doing?
We are trying to take our place, contribute to the country, to the development of this country, which is ours, or to the world.
Okay, so
at large.
that gives a reason to the EU theme, which says inspire inclusion.
Beautiful.
Prof, let me come to you, Prof. Let me start from what she said, that men always look out for women in the course of the shit doing our job. Do the men around you look out for you? And if they do, how? Why?
I would say human beings look out for each other. I look out for a lot of the men that I work with, and I make sure that they're doing well, and I make sure that I'm concerned about their well-being. And I think it's only natural that the men should look out for me as well, because if we're in a collegiate environment where we're supportive of each other, that should be the case. I don't necessarily think that women need particularly looking after, because especially in this knowledge economy, a lot of the things that you have to do is not with bronze, it's with brains, it's with information. And therefore, every woman can do exactly and access exactly the same sorts of things that men can do. I think what my sister has said, which I really agree with though, is that oftentimes men like having women around as long as women are behind. I don't think that we've got the memo that says it is beside, not behind, and that women need to stand. I should be able to stand beside a man, and sometimes in front of a man, and that has nothing to do about a man's incapabilities or whatever. Men shouldn't feel, if you like, emasculated as a result of that, because we all have our strengths, and that man may be perhaps doing a lot better in another sphere. So yes, we look after each other. I look after my brothers look after me. And I think that's just right. And we do things differently. And diversity brings greater success. So if we bring our skills as women to the table, and men bring their skills as women to the table, as men to the table, and we draw upon each other's strengths, then we become better. However, if we compete and we struggle and we fight, and then we kind of dissipate our energies, and I don't think we'll achieve as much as we otherwise could.
Let me still stay with you, Prof. In Africa, my colleague here just said there are not many women that are given opportunities to occupy political positions, decision-making positions in Africa. But one of my, the founder of that communication will say power is not given, is taken. It does appear. And in Nigeria, we have the 35% affirmative action that has not even been fully actualized. Do you want to tell me what is the major problem we have here that are not allowing women to occupy leadership and decision-making position politically in Africa?
Okay. You want to put me in trouble, but
Not really.
The thing is, whether we like it or not, ours is a very patriarchal society. I recall that as a woman, your value in our society is very much tied to your role in the home. And it's not very long ago that our immediate past president said somebody should belong in their room the room they belong to. I couldn't call names, and I say nobody's names, but it happened, and it still happens. And I think it is this idea that women are there for the ride. Women are there to support men. And that means that they have to have an inferior role. And this starts from childhood. I mean, one of the things I say, and it's in different interviews that I've given, is that I knew I was a woman before I knew who I was, because it's a refrain you hear every day. Don't you know you're a woman? Go and wash the plate. Don't you know you're a woman? Don't sit that way. Don't you know you're a woman? Help your brother. Don't you know you're a woman? Cook. Don't you know you're a woman? So if the value that we place on our girl child is really about how successful they can be just as homemakers. Any wonder then that for a lot of women, the aspiration is very much limited. You find, I mean, this was something that I always found very, very surprising, that I would be on a program. So I'm a lawyer, I went to law school. We have female students and male students. We're studying exactly the same program. And somehow the men feel that they're the ones providing for the women, even though they have exactly the same jobs. I am on platforms where I still see misogyny on a daily basis, where There are female judges who are my classmates. There are female, if you like, leading legal luminaries on the platform, and every day I see misogynistic posts being posted about how men are supporting women and how men are taking, and I keep wondering, where are women's monies going to? So I think just structurally there is this idea that as a woman there is a limitation to who you are and what you can be and what you can do, and it never really matters the heights that you reach. People are still going to ask you, who is our husband? You know, if you do not have a husband, then somehow you are limited. And then the next question, children. Does she have children? If you don't have children, and it doesn't matter what the level of your achievement is. And I think as a result, you find that women focus, some women, I'm not saying all women, focus a lot more on trying to meet those societal aspirations. Sometimes it's even in pop culture, you know. I watch a lot of these musicians, and you see the men all clad properly and fine. And for a woman, it's about your body, quote unquote, sex sells. And so women feel like the commodities, they commercialize themselves in that way, because for some people, they said they're reclaiming their bodies and it's empowerment. But sometimes I question that and say, why is it that it's always women who have to, in some way or the other, provide, if you like, some of these distractions for men in a way that men may not necessarily do for women. So I think there are lots of structural issues, there are lots of structural problems around some of these challenges. So women may go to university, women may get a first class in whatever they're doing, but the question will become immediately after you graduate, when are you married? Have you found a husband? And that becomes, if you like, a focus. I remember I went for an interview at the very early stages of my career. Of course, from my name, nobody knows whether I'm male or female, which has always served me well. But when you arrive, they will know. And I think I did quite well at the interview. And at the end of the day, one of the things I was told was, oh, it was so good. But, you know, when you employ a woman, they're still on the phone talking to a man, and then before you know, they're having children. And that caused me to ask. I said, if a woman is on the phone talking to a man, what do you think the man is doing? He is also talking to a woman. Why don't you focus on the man talking to the woman? Why is it the woman talking to the man that is a problem? Because clearly, if as a lawyer I am on the phone talking to a man, I'll be talking to a man who is also working somewhere. But men do not see that. It is a woman on the phone somehow that is a problem. So I think there are structural issues. There are issues around culture. There are issues around patriarchy that we need to address to allow women really actualize themselves and be able to, if you like, compete on the same platform. And I think that has to be enabled. I don't think it's because women, because you said the Darcy talked about taking power. Yes, you can take power, but you can only take power where you've been given the tools and the same level playing platform to do the same. If you don't have that level playing platform to do the same, then it's challenging and it is difficult. If you have to spend part of your time caring for children because you are the mother, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I've loved being a mother, I think it's the best job in the world, but those are things that are not taken into account, particularly in our societies. And some of the things that I think this country where I'm in does a little bit better is to try and recognize those and allow women take maternity leaves for a very longer period of time and provide that support, childcare provision, so that women can actually go out there and compete on the same platform as men. I'm not saying it's the same. I'm not saying it's equal. In the profession I am, there are about over 2,600, I think, professors in the UK. Only 66 of us are Black women. That's kind of the proportions that we're talking about, which meant that I think a few years ago, there was actually a project done about us. They called us Phenomenal Women, basically trying to understand how we were able to break that ceiling that is so difficult to break. And I think women everywhere, whether in journalism, in whatever other areas, are fighting the same battles to be, if you like, recognized, to be able to step into those spaces that traditionally men would be the ones stepping into and occupying.
Thanks a lot, Prof. Sada, I'm sorry, I'm really out of time there. Okay. I wish I could just allow you guys to continue. You and Prof. Yeah, 20 seconds, you want to say this.
You know, like Prof was saying, she was. In fact, she took some of the words out of my mouth. You know, the culture, you know, comes to play. The fact that the men always feel superior comes to play most times. So I think it is high time. You know,
is that going to change anytime soon?
Yes, it should, because we are still advocating for that.
I'm
it's
afraid.
A continuous process.
Prof, let me give you this question. While you were talking the other time, you said the culture of behind every successful man is a woman. Is that statement going to change anytime soon, that in front of a successful man is a woman?
I would say beside every spouse.
Beside.
Beside.
Yes.
So it can never be in front, yeah?
And it doesn't matter then who is in front, because whatever you're beside your partners, you're working together. And I think that's the reorientation we need. It doesn't matter who is in front. We're partners working together.
All right, Prof. Thank you so much. I've been talking with Professor Emeseh. She's a professor of law and the head of the School of Law at the University of Bradford in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for taking your time to be part of this discussion today. Thanks a lot, Prof.
Thank you very much.
Sadia, thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Sincere appreciation to my colleagues, and enjoy the rest of your International Women's Day. Bye.